this webinar, we're calling it Sports Supplements and Scandal, what the sports supplement industry doesn't want you to know. And of course, as always, it's brought to you by your Wellness Project, which was created to educate people on topics from nutrition and supplementation to going green, because the better educated you are, the better decisions you can make for your health. We have newsletters and weekly updates, our Wellness Resource Center, and live events, just like this one. So, in sports, the tiniest bit of physical advantage can spell the difference between success and failure. And athletes all have their own natural ability, their discipline, and their desire to win. But some may seek to gain a competitive edge and improve their chances of winning through supplementation, legally or otherwise. And this is one of the biggest problems that hounds sports. So in this webinar, Olympian Eli Bremmer talks about the scandal involving sports supplements and how Shaklee's performance product line differs from other brands based on science and his own firsthand experience. So what you'll learn tonight in this free webinar is what the most persistent scandal in sports is, how supplementation can affect your health and performance, tips on how to choose a good supplement brand, and what makes Shaklee's performance line very special, plus much more. And again, as I mentioned, it's going to be presented by Eli Bremmer. Eli is a modern pentathlete who competed for the U.S. at the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing, China, and he finished 22nd overall in the modern pentathlon event, which is a pretty impressive feat. He's a graduate of the Air Force Academy, the United States Air Force Academy, and he's currently a major in the Air Force Reserves. He was a regional finalist in the 2008 White House Fellows Program and worked as an NBC Olympic color commentator, and apparently many more years than we have listed here. And he's also slated to be the color commentator in 2021, which is really exciting. And at the Olympics, he wrote a popular blog, a feature blog for USA Today, and a couple other things he mentioned to me. He was a former #2 ranked pentathlete in the world, okay, the entire world. And he was also featured on National Geographic's The Incredible Human Machine, which I know I'm going to want to hear more about that. I think everyone's going to want to hear about that. So welcome, Eli. Thanks again for being our guest and our presenter, our expert presenter tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Laura. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity, and happy to share with some people about supplementation and some of the good parts and the bad parts and the ugly parts.
That's right, and I know you know the situation from every angle. So let's just get going. I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Well, great. I'm going to wait for the slides to come up here again. So yeah, this is there's been a lot of scandal in sports surrounding supplementation. This goes back a number of years, and I'll briefly go into the history of it. And for those of you who remember the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, Australia, those were an amazing Olympics, and afterwards, very quickly, there was a huge scandal that broke out of Bay Area Lab Company, and very quickly we realized in the Olympics we had a massive problem with doping. And so ever since then, doping's been a major focus in the Olympics. I think it's starting to get more widely recognized in other sports too. And you know, the use of drugs in sports has gone back years, but it definitely with the professionalization in the Olympics as well as other sports, athletes have looked at everything they can, from bad diets and other treatments, to try to find a way to enhance their abilities. And so as sports have advanced, so has doping, and you know, as the slide shows, in ancient times, you know, people were also looking to get attention. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, it's a great quote. Scandinavian mythology talks about this, and what, you know, this has been pervasive in cultures all over the world. That people have been trying, like I said, to get these advantages. So I think it's kind of baked into human nature. Like, everyone's looking for that secret edge. When people find out I'm an Olympian, you know, they're like, oh my gosh, like, what's that little secret thing you can do? And again, most people are doing it in an ethical principle way, but you know, but people have always looked for that edge, whether it be legal or illegal. And we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between the, again, the healthy ways and the unhealthy ways. All right, next slide. All right, so this is a list of some of the banned substances that are in sports. I believe the current list is 273 in the world anti-doping list. Now, a lot of these drugs are positive drugs that can be used in the right situation, from anabolic steroids, peptides and hormones, beta-2 antagonists. I'm not going to have trouble pronouncing this, glucocorticoids. I think I got that. Morris, give me a thumbs up there. Things like diuretics, which can be used very productively. And then there's a whole slew of illicit other drugs, stimulants. You don't see them as much in sports, but things like cocaine. You see marijuana in sports more, just out of recreational. But these are all banned in most of the sports league. The Olympics really have taken the lead. MMA is actually using the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency now to do their testing as well. So a lot of the sports leagues are realizing the importance of keeping sports clean. And there are good reasons for that. People look up to athletes. They look at athletes as the pinnacle of human performance. And for a lot of people, things like testosterone, if you're low testosterone, taking that is a good thing. But if you have enough testosterone, taking it causes a problem. So let's go to the next slide where we talk about some of the effects of supplementation on your health and performance. Go ahead. The use of nutritional supplements among athletes is also widespread, and those are healthy supplements and unhealthy supplements. I mean, I don't know the numbers of how much money people are spending today, but I'll tell you, ever since COVID started, supplementation has gone through the roof, and that can be good or it can be bad. It's a double-edged sword. Not all supplements are created equal, and it's extremely important to know how they're going to affect your health and performance. All right, so what are the positive effects that supplementation can help you with? You can train longer and harder, you can build muscles faster, you can recover more from your training more efficiently. And a lot of people are going to ask, like, can I get this from just eating a healthy diet? I've been spending the last probably 2 years working on a research project on genetics and its impact on human performance. I've been studying that actually along with Ismael Hernandez, who a number of you know, he's an Olympic bronze medalist pentathlete. And one of the things that I'm convinced is going to go away in the next probably 10 years is the RDA for various different, for your vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. And the reason is that each of us has genetic predispositions for how our bodies work. And so if one person takes the RDA for vitamin B, their next door neighbor might take the RDA and actually be deficient. So we've known for a long time that supplements, the proper supplementation can help. We're now starting to learn more of the science behind that. And it is really true that proper supplementation can help you do all these things, train longer, build muscles faster, and recover more from your training, which is really what you want to do. Training is about stressing your body, and then you rebuild and recover. So that's good things that supplements can do. All right. Okay, but here's some of the harmful things that can happen if you're using supplements with harmful ingredients. And this comes both in terms of ingredients that are known, that may be illegally sold, that aren't good for you. You can also be buying supplements with bad ingredients. There's a lot of companies that put things in their products that are not on the label. I will tell you, if you are ordering your products off of major bundled suppliers on the internet, you are probably getting all sorts of stuff in your supplements that you do not want to get. Okay, it's like the Wild West out there. There's a lot of companies, Shackley included, that don't sell on these major websites, and yet you see products out there. And so it's obviously there's got to be a lot of counterfeits and stuff like that in the market. So let's talk about what can happen with harmful ingredients. You can have things like liver and heart problems. Again, if a lot of bad supplements are contaminated with pharmaceuticals, and again, those can be good if you need them, but they can be bad. Prostate problems in infants, blood problems, including blood cancer. In fact, there's actually been supplements many supplements have been found to have carcinogens in the binding agent. So you're taking something to get healthy, you get carcinogens. Carcinogens are connected to cancer. Things like loss of vision, crippling arthritis, increased levels of aggression. If you're taking a product with testosterone that's doing that, and you don't need it medically, it can cause all that kind of things. Things like stunted growth in kids and teenagers. So these are things that are not associated with things like B vitamins and D vitamins. There are things that would be associated with pharmaceuticals or contaminants that can be in the supplements. Okay, so I want to be really clear about that. And we know that in the Western marketplace, there are massive amounts of contamination in supplements that are sold in many, many stores, and you can just Google this and read about it. It's all over the internet where you see the problems. All right, moving forward. All right, so what makes the Shaklee Performance Sports line special? So, and I want to also tell people our sports line is designed. Every body is an athlete, right? So you get out of bed in the morning, it's an athletic move. You walk around the house, it's an athletic move. Okay, so the more you use your body athletically, the more you're likely to need supplementation. But these products can be used for everything. So the performance line is designed to do 4 things, which I'm hoping to magically pop up on the screen here, and they did. So the first is to energize your body. Then we're going to hydrate, build, and recover. So I'm going to dig into each of those. Energize is going to be giving your body some sort of stimulants so you feel better about working out. Natural caffeine actually starts mobilizing fat, and it helps you actually have literally more chemical energy in your body while you're working out. Hydration is replenishing electrolytes and increasing endurance and stamina. I want to pause on this because I cannot tell you how many elite athletes I know, or not elite, probably like sub-elites, you'll call them the collegiate level even. They think hydration is about water. I was actually swimming with my swim partner, and she coaches a local club team, and was talking to some of the swimmers who were lifeguards at the outdoor pool where I swim, and they would be outdoors all day, and in the hot sun, and they would show up to practice. They couldn't just couldn't swim well in the afternoon, and she told them, she said, you've got to have electrolytes to be properly hydrated and ready to swim. So she got them taking an electrolyte drink, saw a notable performance. So again, hydration is about more than water. And then rebuilding. Okay, this is super important because you don't do a workout, you do not get stronger in a workout. You actually get weaker in a workout. Okay, the way our bodies get stronger is you tear them down in a workout, and then they rebuild in response to the stress. Okay, so that build part is arguably the most important. And so we want you to build muscle and glycogen. Okay, glycogen is the stored carbohydrate in your muscle and in your liver and places like that. And then the last one is to recover, and that's sort of your overnight, making sure you're getting to sleep. And we'll talk in a second about what that, a little more of that means. All right. So we have 2 lines. We have 2 lines. We call them fitness and endurance. And I think a lot of people get a little bit confused about this. What I would describe as for is sort of regular exercise, or what I'd say maybe is lower intensity exercise might be the way to do it. So if you're not in that really high burning cardio phase, this is what I would recommend, because the fitness line is a lower carbohydrate product, and the carbohydrates are a brilliant source of energy. The problem with carbohydrates is they want to be used or stored as energy. So if you don't use them, you store them as energy, primarily as fat. So that's why we want to be a little careful, make sure that you're taking the right stuff. So for someone who's not doing high intensity training, the energy, the Shaklee Energize is a powder, and it's no calorie, but it's an energy drink, so it's going to have a natural stimulant. It helps you feel better. There's no reason to go into a workout just feeling really draggy. You're going to do a better workout if you feel better. Hydrate is, again, a low calorie electrolyte drink. When I use this, it's based on the workout, not the athlete. So if I'm going out to play golf in 95-degree heat Colorado sun here, where I live, I'm filling my water bottle with hydrate because it's low carbohydrates. You don't burn a lot of calories gulping, but you need electrolytes. Build is a protein, nearly a protein isolate. It's a 7-to-1 protein to carbohydrate ratio. And so it's going to give you the protein you need. Protein tends to rebuild muscle. Carbohydrates, again, tend to be used for energy. And then the final is the recovery complex, which helps you sort of sleep and get a better night's sleep. It does wonders for post-workout soreness. So, and then when we talk about the more intense exercise on the next slide here, for the higher intensity, Shaklee has energy chews. Those are probably equivalent to like a cup of coffee in terms of the natural caffeine. If the caffeine is going to function differently because it's natural caffeine, again, I like that. Different people respond differently. I have a fairly high sensitivity to caffeine, so I don't need as much, but some people are very insensitive to it. And that's just something you can try out yourself. For hydration, we would use Hydrate Plus, which is the endurance electrolyte drink. And the plus on all the products that Shaklee has means it has carbohydrates in it. So that's going to have about 100 calories per serving, which is fine. I rode my bike for 2 hours today. I had 2.5 servings of Shaklee's Hydrate Plus. My Apple Watch said I burned 1,100 calories, so it's still 850 calorie deficit. So if you're out working hard, don't be afraid of drinking your carbohydrates. Now after the workout, for higher intensity, we're going to use Build Plus, which is the Physique Plus Biobuild Recovery Shake, and that's going to be a 3-to-1 carbohydrate to protein. A lot of people say, well, don't I want to not take the, isn't carbohydrates bad for you? Carbohydrates are not bad for you if you are working out high intensity. In fact, I've got a whole other presentation on this. When you work out at high intensity, you have to be burning carbohydrates. You cannot burn anything else. So if you're into high intensity cardio, you gotta be taking the carbohydrates. And then again, for anyone, you can do the PM Recovery Complex. It's a great product after a really hard workout, so you don't get sore. My wife does sort of a boot camp workout, and if she's been off for a week or two, man, she has to take that a couple times during the week that she gets back home. So here's the key to our nutrition line, and these are sort of health products. When we talk supplementation, some people think of supplementation as just the pills you take. It's really supplementing your diet, and I always like to say it supplements a healthy diet. It doesn't replace. If you go to the fast food places and you're buying, a Big Mac and a super big gulp or whatever they serve, this is not going to undo the damage that you get from putting that in your body. It supplements a healthy diet. We also have the ability to take in the like pill form supplements like multivitamins and things like that, because the more we're learning about human physiology, the more we're learning a lot of people have deficiencies baked into their genetic code. So for instance, I don't tend to absorb vitamin B, vitamin D, magnesium particularly well, so I take multivitamin from Shaklee, and then I also take those on top of it just because I want to make sure I'm all there. But the key to Shaklee is that it's safe. Their products have no artificial flavors, sweeteners, or preservatives, no banned substances, and exceptional quality control. Now we talk about their clinically tested proven results, but the reason I'm here and doing the presentation is because we talk about one of our greatest assets is all the Olympians that use our products. I think we already have over 30 Olympians. The last I checked, who are qualified for the next Summer Olympics. An Olympian gets drug tested about once a month on average, plus in competitions. And this is a product that we've had on the order of about 200 Olympians total who have used Shaklee products while they're being drug tested, and that's our biggest testimonial in terms of both the quality and then also the purity of the product. So if it's pure enough for me to take when I was training to be number 2 in the world, it's also pure enough to give my 5-year-old son, who many of you follow me on Facebook and know he's had a bit of a difficult medical time, and he's doing really well. But that's what I tell people. Like I trusted it with my body. when I was competing in the Olympics, and now I trust it with a medically fragile 5-year-old who I want to make sure has healthy nutrition to give him the best shot at having a normal life. So, Maura, I'll turn it back over to you, and if we have time for questions after, I'll be happy to answer.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, that was great, and as I'm not surprised that you added a little bit of your own information. Like I never knew, for example, that the build product, which is sort of more of the lower energy workout product, that recovery product, is a 7-to-1 ratio of, you said, protein to carbohydrate?
That's correct. It has a few carbs. It has a limited amount of carbohydrates.
Yeah, and that the 3-to-1 in the physique plus is so I never knew that. And there was actually a question, I'm not sure if you noticed it, regarding that, because there are some people who feel that isn't enough protein, that the protein ratio isn't high enough. But what might you be able to say to that?
Well, it depends on the workouts you're doing. It really does. And there's been a bit of a fad to get away from carbohydrates. Not all carbohydrates are created equal. Okay, so if you look at a popular sports drink, although I hate to call it that, that might be sold in big box stores, it actually has high fructose corn syrup. And what that's going to do is that's going to flood your body with way too much glucose very quickly. It doesn't give you sort of a nice, a leveled out curve for your blood sugar. And so it spikes, you create insulin to deal with that, and then you don't have bioavailable energy source. So, I'm okay with people having a little more protein, like making a mistake there versus their carbohydrates. There is actually a really interesting question. I see that a gentleman put a thing here that says ketones can be burned as well. That's proven science. That's actually correct, but what is lacking in the knowledge of that is ketones cannot be burned in anaerobic exercise. And so when we talk about high intensity exercise, which is where you burn the most calories, so high intensity, you can burn upwards of 900 to 1,200 calories an hour, whereas a lower intensity, if you go on an easy bike ride versus, let's say, an interval workout, you might burn 300 calories an hour. So in the same way that you can burn fat as an energy source, yes, it is true. You can burn ketones. What is not true, and where there's been a bit of misleading pseudoscience around this, is that you cannot burn that as a primary source in anaerobic exercise. So if you're doing weightlifting and stuff like that, you're really not in the anaerobic world. If you're in, like I like riding my bike really hard, I like swimming hard, that's anaerobic. You're going to be in high level anaerobic exercise for a long time. You cannot, it's physiologically impossible to not burn blood glucose. Okay, it's the chemical reactions that take place. So I'll see if I can do I have time to rip through a couple of these other questions that are on.
Yes, and one just came in, but I'm interested in what you said. There's bike riding, and then there's bike riding. There's la 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 down the road. Kind of having a little joyride and intensely bike riding.
And so the difference is that when the harder you work out, you burn exponentially more calories, and you actually work through different, you use different energy supplies. So if you're working in an aerobic zone, aerobic means with oxygen, it doesn't, obviously you're breathing oxygen the whole time. Oxygen is used in the metabolism of fat. That's why we call it the aerobic zone. Okay, so what happens in the anaerobic zone is not that you're not burning oxygen or using oxygen, it's that your energy source changes. And it's how you're primarily using your energy source. And so carbohydrates are very powerful because they can be burned. I mean, it's like a high octane fuel. But the problem with carbohydrates is if you go on an easy bike ride and you're burning predominantly fat, and then you flood your body with carbohydrates, what's going to happen is your body produces insulin. Insulin grabs the carbohydrates and it's going to want to store it as fat. However, after I burn 1,100 calories on a bike ride, if I ingest carbohydrates, I also get insulin. And the insulin takes the glucose and it stores it as glycogen. So it's very important to eat to your workout and not just sort of say, okay, I just believe in this one thing, and do it that way because it's much more complex than that.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Okay. And that speaks to, of course, your years of experience of doing this and doing this at a high level. So
yeah, and so there's a great quote. There's a great question here. One of my downline says she keeps running into people who say our milk doesn't have enough protein. What do you say about that?
right.
That's sort of like saying that there's not enough milk in the milk. Okay, if you want more protein, just add another scoop. Okay,
And she's talking about the build with the 7-to-1 ratio. So that's
correct. Yeah, and so
that would seem to be a good factor.
yeah, so it's again, it's understanding that you got to understand a little bit of the science behind that. Like, if it's 20 grams of protein and you do half of the dose, you're gonna have 10 grams. If you want 30, just do 1.5. If you want 40, just do like. So it's like, so think through these things. Like when you get into nutrition, there's so much sort of faddish pseudoscience out there, and then when you break it down, you say, oh, actually, it's really simple. If I need more protein, I can just add more protein. The issue with protein is the quality. So if I go to Costco, is one of the ones that's been picked on in the news reports. There was a report a couple of years ago, and I hope they've cleaned it up since, that an outside group said it was like 80% of the proteins there were found to have contaminants in them. A lot of them were heavy metals and things like that. So again, when you're talking about nutrition, the quality matters a lot. Not all proteins are created equal. Animal protein is digested differently from soy protein, and again, everybody's bodies are a little different. So I can't give a one size fits all.
And that brings up another question. Someone asked about whey, and they want to know your thoughts on whey. And there's another person who says they can't tolerate dairy, but they want to know about the whey also. And I know the whey is in the Physique Plus.
Sure. So whey protein is obviously it's the protein coming out of the milk product. A lot of people. So if we look at, like, if you're lactose intolerant, so lactose is going to be the sugar in the milk, and you may not be intolerant to whey. So I would recommend that. And then the other thing is, my brother's a physician, and he had thought for years that he was dairy intolerant, and he discovered that by going to a natural dairy source, that he could actually drink dairy. And he did some more research on it and discovered that it had it was much more complex behind the scenes of you got issues of hormones going into some of the milk. There's also, my mom actually worked with me on this. She's a doctorate in human nutrition, and she believes that there's actually certain breeds of cows that are producing milk that is intolerant to a lot of people. And so if you're buying sort of just general homogenized milk at stores, you're probably getting that in there. And so again, it's a little more complex than this. And so I would try it. I'm unaware of anyone that's had an allergic reaction. If your doctor says you have an allergic reaction, that's different from intolerance. But I know a lot of people who think they're lactose intolerant, they try whey protein, and they actually don't have a problem. So that's where I would.
So they might be able to start with a smaller amount, for example.
Yeah, just absolutely try your tolerance. Again, if anybody tells you that there's an absolute, it's all the time good for everyone, then I will tell you with 100% certainty, it's not. With maybe the exception being that we know that the things that are closer to how they were naturally, pretty much always is going to be better for us. But anything else, we're learning about the diversity of things like the human genome, and that people handle things differently. So you can't do anything other than look out and try it for yourself, and then be sensitive to, does it work for you or not.
Someone even asked if you had your had some sort of nutritional, and you have done it.
Yeah,
DNA testing.
Yeah, it's a new cutting edge stuff that's coming out. I'm not comfortable quite yet recommending a brand there, but I might be fairly soon. and because it's an emerging science, and I'm getting much more comfortable with it. But yeah, I think that is one of the next big things that's coming out is I think in 5 or 10 years, everybody's going to get genetic tests probably combined with some blood tests. So genetic test tells you what your likely predispositions are. Blood test tells you a snapshot of state. So my genetic testing said I was likely to be short of vitamin B and vitamin D, but I take Shapley's Vitalizer strip every day and specialty vitamins. I spent a fair amount of time out in the sun, and so I'm probably okay with my vitamin D, and so it hasn't shown up in my blood. But knowing that I have that predisposition is good. I'm not saying yet, don't run out and get a genetic test yet. This stuff's still kind of emerging, and I wouldn't recommend it quite yet, but follow my Facebook page. If I'm ready to make any announcements on that, we'll come out with that at some point probably.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you. I do follow you, and I'm happy to know about that because I've always felt like that was a little iffy. Like, okay, I'm going to take my DNA and send it off to the internet. I think a lot of people are a little bit, or like me, a little uncomfortable with that, but it's good to know that you feel that it could be a good thing in the future.
So there's a question. Actually, there was a question about when did Shackley stop producing the performance in the big package? It was a while, and I have no idea how that decision was made, but I tell you, I think I set the record for how many gallons someone's drank because I started performance, which is now Hydrate Plus back in the 1990s. So, and then there was a comment: the ratio of physique was established in clinical study where it was originally created. That is absolutely correct. So physique was really one of, if not the first, targeted recovery products. What has changed is not the science, but what's changed is largely how we use our bodies. So it was created, I believe, at the end of the 1980s when we were really doing a lot more cardio. Okay, and so again, that's why it's got a 3-to-1 carbohydrate protein blend. What we're doing now is we're doing more muscular workouts. We're doing high intensity interval training, things like that. And so if you're doing cycling intervals, track and field, swimming, I would recommend Physique, which is Build Plus. If you're doing more of a weightlifting regimen, strength training, I would point you toward Build. So that's again, you have to do some thought behind this. If someone says you should only take Build or you should never take Build, there's a time and a place for everything except soda. There's no time and place.
That's great.
No, that's like one of those. Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
I know. I know that there are people out there who think, hey, I'll do a workout and I'll have a big glass of chocolate milk afterwards and I'll be fine. Yeah. That's enough, protein, and somehow that doesn't sound right.
Yeah. A couple of comments coming in about carb loading. So I'm not going to get too much into that, but Shackley works with Dr. Gennady Sobolovich, who's a world leading sports physiologist who did the research on this. He worked with a guy that you may have heard of named Michael Phelps, who was his main consultant, and actually he led the research that proved the impact of carbohydrate consumption during workouts in 2008, right down the street here at the Olympic Training Center. So again, there's usually a grain of truth in every sort of new concept that comes out, and that's what I would advise people is think through it. It's generally speaking okay to test it and see if it doesn't work for you. We know from genetics now that some people do well on a lower carbohydrate diet with more strength training. We also know from genetics that some people do better on a higher carbohydrate diet with more high intensity training. Until that becomes a more mainstream product, I would just say understand the basic science. If you're doing high intensity training and you like it, stay with it, but you need more carbohydrates. If you're doing more strength training, things like that, then stay with it, enjoy it. But you're probably going to need more protein, and you may need more protein than the person next to you, or you may need less for the same workout. Where all of our bodies are different, so it's just understanding that and try to really individualize that. So there was a question. Great question on weightlifter, which product is better for me, Physique or Build? In general, Jennifer, I would recommend the Build because you probably need more protein. Okay, if you're doing more explosive lifts, now you're probably using some of your glycogen supplies during that. And if you're not feeling like, if you're feeling really sluggish, you might start adding some physique in there to get the carbohydrates, because again, that's going to provide that more explosive energy. So
that sounds good.
yeah, and actually, I helped Shackley design those. We actually designed all those products to be mixed. So if you wanted, and I do this all the time. So if you want all the electrolytes and half the carbohydrates in a sports drink, you actually can mix hydrate and hydrate plus, and you can get a 50-calorie drink with the same composition of electrolytes. Okay. If you want a recovery product that's 50% protein, 50% carbohydrates, you can mix the two. They're covered. So again, I encourage people to try them out in limited forms, and see what works for you. So I think you're on mute there, Mark.
Sorry, you're right. I'm kind of, my head is kind of spinning because there's so much to take in. But the idea of mixing the hydrate products never occurred to me. That's great, because I do feel sometimes that there's, when I'm just working in the garden or something, it might be a little much for that. Just
if you're, you know what, if you're feeling an increase in energy and you're like, okay, I'm gonna take, maybe you can use some more carbohydrates. I was playing a golf tournament last weekend. Again, I'm usually taking hydrate when I do that. I just felt like I needed a little bit of extra energy, so I put some hydrate plus. Jennifer had a question: how do you determine which product to use based off your workout, based on heart rate, training your calories for both? I tell people now, if you've got a wearable, these are great. You don't have to have one, but look at those, because they're going to be pretty accurate. So if you're burning, let's say 800 calories in an hour, if you look at your workout and you're at that rate, you are anaerobic. Okay. If your watch tells you, gee, you probably burn 300 in an hour, you're aerobic. Okay. And so you can use some of these tools that are readily available now. And yeah, it is based on your heart rate, but different people have different heart rates. So everybody has a different training zone. And so my anaerobic training zone may actually be different than another person's anaerobic training zone. And so what matters is which zone are you in, because the definition of the zones is actually what energy your body is using to produce the power in the zone. So again, when you're in the aerobic zone, you're using fats. When you're in the anaerobic zone, you're using glycogens, and glycogen that converts into glucose or consume carbohydrates. When you're doing like VO2 max, you're exponential. You're burning. We don't even know how many calories a minute you're burning, because it's a ton. But what's happening then is your lactic acid goes up over the top. It goes exponential, and it basically causes your body to fall off and shut down. So the highest intensity most people ever get to is anaerobic. There was a great question of thoughts on Vivex. The reason Vivex is in the Life Strip is in 2011, 2012, we had a bunch of our Olympians who started using Vivex. And the company started calling out and saying, okay, why the heck do we have young people taking an anti-aging product? The reason is that it helps regeneration at the cellular level, and it also has anti-inflammatory properties. Again, different people are going to respond to it differently. So we had athletes that would swear by it, and for that reason, it was one of the reasons, is it was scientifically validated, so they put it in the Life Strip. Some people, I think, are going to get more benefit than others, but it is a very potent anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and mitochondrial regeneration. So again, when you're working out, you're tearing your body down. So is it a sports product? No, but can it help you recover? Yeah, I think so.
Wonderful. Another question here: what is your VO2 max?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. Honestly, that is not one that a lot of athletes have used for a while, because it is less interesting than what zone your anaerobic capacity is. So when I was training, I could take my anaerobic capacity right up. It's a range. Okay, so you enter it, and at the low end of the range, you're starting to produce substantial levels of lactic acid. Okay, lactic acid is a byproduct of glucose burning in the body. Okay, so again, where do you get glucose from? It's so that's when you start building up the acid in your body. When you reach the peak of your threshold zone, your body can no longer buffer the lactic acid. Okay, and so what happens is your blood gets flooded with acid, and your body will shut down very quickly after. Okay, so what's most interesting is how high up. So one of the things I was able to do through substantial training, and actually through genetic testing I did this year as part of my research, I discovered I have both. I actually have really good sprint genes and really good distance genes, and I actually don't have particularly good middle distance genes. What was interesting about that is that I was able to do so much endurance training that I was able to stay in my anaerobic zone for a really long time, and then I still had a zone right above that I could hit for the end of the race.
That's great.
So it's more athletes are concerned now, I think, about where their anaerobic zones are, especially in cardio sports. So again, just there's a lot of data out there. I tell people, like, invest in a wearable. They're cheap now, and I mean, this is an Apple Watch. I'm not, but you get Garmin. I mean, most people now I think have the Apple Watch. Look, I use this. Okay, Olympians use the data on that because it's valuable. I can tell you how many calories are burned in what time. I know basically how many carbohydrates. So you do not need to spend a ton of money, and the information's right there in front of you now, and you have more information today than when I was ranked number 2 in the world. Like, the average consumer today can know more about the physiology than when I was ranked number 2.
That's amazing, and it's right at your literal fingertips.
Absolutely.
On your wrist. And I remember you saying at one point, all of this information is just so extraordinary coming from you. As I know you said at one point, you were shortly after your performance in the 2008 Olympics, you were the fastest run swimmer in the world. And I think some of the things you just talked about, if I understood it correctly, about your ability to sort of be middle distance, not so good middle distance, but really good sprint and really good long distance. It seems to me that probably aided you in your ability there.
And so what's interesting is now we're starting to challenge our understanding of what actually creates that high level of performance. So again, there's a lot of new science coming out. I do want to get to this. There was a great question about how do you feel, Judy asked, how do you feel about using Build or Physique Plus to restore the body from illness when you can't exercise? Okay, so the issue I have with using Build Plus, when you are ill, yes, your body is probably also getting drained with energy. The only concern I have is just be careful if you're sedentary to take excessive carbohydrates. Okay, your body's natural state, if you're sedentary, it will have a tendency to want to take those carbohydrates and move them into fat. Now, that's not going to happen if you're depleted. So if you're feeling better from that, that's great. And again, the same thing with Build's going to be protein. So it really depends on what you're sick from. So if you're injured, you do need extra protein because you need amino acids to replace the tissue. If you're worn down, again, it can be an energy issue. So it may be that your body may be just running a little hot and needs the extra carbohydrates to make you feel better. Again, the bigger one I would say is electrolytes, fluid. If you're just drinking water, you can actually kind of almost dehydrate yourself. So, okay, she asked the question about for asthma, I think. I would say, again, it's probably less about any sickness you would have, more about how you use your body. So,
and I have heard of folks using, I think the Physique Plus after a car accident or before surgery, and that, as you said, it's your body is going to be going through a stress in either situation. So
it's not going to hurt you. The extra carbs they're not going to hurt you taking it for a little bit. I would not make that a staple if you're in a sedentary state, because again, the concern we have is excessive carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are awesome. They want to be used or stored as energy. Okay, so if you don't use them, you store them as energy. There's only 2 ways they're going to store as energy. Glycogen, which is great, okay, but you can only, a highly trained athlete might have, 12 to 1,500 calories of glycogen. That's not a whole lot, or fat, and it's 3,500 calories of per amount of fat. So guess where that sucker wants to go?
Right.
So yeah,
This has been extraordinary, and I have a feeling that if we allow it to happen, the questions will just keep on coming.
Can I quickly answer James Swain's?
Sure. He talks about the build and life shake.
Build life shake. Okay, so you're getting all the same great products in them. So what life shake? We actually have a lot of athletes who use life shake. The precursor to that was Cinch, which was originally built as a recovery product. So it's going to have carbohydrates in it, okay, because it's a meal replacement shake. So if you want to not be sitting there mixing Bill Plus and Bill, a life shake's not a half bad recovery. So if you're doing a middle of the road workout, it's actually pretty good. So there's no reason you can't use it if you actually look at what that is. Now, when he talks about the study with weight loss and exercise, I think if I remember right, it was moderate exercise that they were using, and it was being used, and life shake was, I believe at the time, being used not as a recovery product, but as a meal replacement. So it absolutely can be used as a recovery product. If you're doing moderate exercise, I would use that as a recovery product. You're also just not going to use it after a workout as a meal replacement. I do that all the time. I'm on the go.
As opposed to jumping for, saying, oh, well, I just was so good and I just worked out, so let me go have a milkshake. No,
right. Let's not do that.
It's right there with the soda.
Yep. Yeah, that's a never event. So anyway.
This has been fantastic. I think another thing that maybe when you come back, and I hope you will, talk to us about the mental focus piece, because obviously as a world-class athlete, you have your genetic ability, your genetic predisposition to be good at what you do, but there's more to it than that, and I know you have a lot of stories about that. So I hope you'll come back and talk to us about that.
I will put in a plug on this, and everything I'm seeing out of the emerging fields of genetics as it relates to sports. I have a saying: there's actually an Olympian inside everyone's body. I was very fortunate and blessed that I was able to be in a position where my parents got me into a sport and a set of sports that I was good at. I was a good swimmer, I was a good runner, I was one of the best in the world at multisport. And so I am not genetically gifted. I have normal genetics that happen to align with that athletic activity. One of the things that I am passionate about moving forward that I think is going to be part of the future is, I would like to help people find their inner Olympian, because I honestly do believe that everyone's created with a set of talents. And again, the Olympians I know, they would just say, hey, I found my sport, and as we do that, I think more and more people are going to be able to find their way to live healthier. And so, but going back to what we talked last night, you're never wrong to eat healthy, you're never wrong to eat natural, you're never wrong to take quality supplements. These are all good things, and over the next few years, we are going to learn more about the human body, but we're never going to learn that it's good to take, pharmaceutical supplements, products that you don't need. We're never going to learn.
You don't, especially ones you don't need. I mean, obviously.
And I don't think we're going to be saying you should probably eat a fast food
fast food meal a day. No, we know what happens when you do that. There was a movie about it, but I think, I think you're right, and I think what you just said is very profound, and like, because I tend to be a little emotional, that almost made me cry, because I have so much respect for you, and I've always been a little somewhat athletic, and I love athletes, and the idea that there is an Olympian in all of us, it's really just a matter of, what are you willing to, if it means so much to you, what are you willing to maybe not sacrifice, but choose to do to bring more of it out of you?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, picture Michael Phelps trying to do a floor routine in gymnastics. Okay.
Oh, that was great.
His genetics are not superior. His genetics are correct for what he did. And if his parents had gotten him, his mom, grew up with single mom, his mom had said, you're going to be a gymnast. I shudder to think of how early he would have quit. And so I really do believe that to everyone out there, you have a talent in something, and the more you try new things, the more you see what you're good at. And that's why I say experiment with some of these things. If if you're like, hey, Bill's not doing it for me, try Bill Plus. It's okay. There's no perfect body. There's just the perfect thing for your body.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Eli. It's been amazing to have you here with us tonight. And I hope folks will check us out in the live stream in Discover Shackley and your wellness project. And if you have some questions there, maybe we'll get lucky and you can ask Eli and we'll tag him and he can pick up some of that at a later date. But it's been fantastic, not surprisingly. So if you would like more about this topic and any nutritional topic, we would, of course, love to help. We would like you to reach out to the person who invited you to this event. They can give you more information. They can have you join their wellness center where this will be archived. And we'd love to have you create a free account in their wellness center. You get VIP access to all of the digital library of wellness-focused ebooks, videos, archived webinars, and so much more. So again, for your wellness project, thank you. And thank you, Eli. And we will see you next time